Yes, Pete. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I see people from all over the world here, and certainly good evening to our special guest, Dr. Gerald Wellenhofer. So, Gerald, good evening, and thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, and of course, we have our frequent guest and RAR expert, Pete Graham. Pete, welcome.
Thanks, Sean. Good to be here again.
So we are so excited. Hopefully we're getting back to, we have a great audience here. A lot of you are still joining. So we'll take care of a few items, but let me go over the agenda. We'll do some welcome and housekeeping. I'm going to introduce and remind everybody about this idea of the digital solutions economy. And then we'll talk a little bit about a few key points around SAP revenue accounting, and we'll talk about the roadmap, what's going on with regard to the SAP roadmap, what's coming, what can we expect. With Pete and Gerald, talk about OCM, optimized contract management, optimized inbound processing, a little bit about how that implies for the universal journal and the implications for the digital economy, and then we can talk about a couple of other subjects and questions. So for those of you who are on here, do feel free to ask any questions, raise your hands or ask questions throughout the broadcast, and we'll be happy to answer those. With that in mind, again, I want to remind everybody the session is being recorded. So you can go back to our website or we will be sharing the link later on today and tomorrow through LinkedIn and our social media. So you can check that out. Again, reminder to ask questions throughout the webinar of our distinguished team here. And then, by the way, check out other webinars. Gerald's been on a couple of times before where we've talked about other features. We have some great webinars with Pete, webcasts, so I encourage all of you to check those out. Contact us, so feel free to engage with us. Certainly you can go over to sap.com and get a lot of great information, and we're going to talk a little bit about the roadmap section in a little bit. But you can engage with Bramasol through our website, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have YouTube videos, so many of these videos are up on YouTube, so go check those out. We have our own homepage where you can see a whole bunch of different customer stories as well as content. And then you can engage with us on a number of our different podcasts. We've done probably 50 plus podcasts so far about RAR, BRIM, and other topics, and we have another 20, 30 of them planned for the rest of this year. So please go check those out. I think you'll enjoy the conversations there. So with that, I want to transition over and why we're here is because we believe that RAR combined with BRIM, billing and revenue innovation management, is really a solution for the new digital solutions economy, for the new world, for what SAP is calling, and we're all calling, something as a service. But what does that really look like? And what we've created is this flow chart, or this flower slide, we like to call it. And it talks about a customer-driven business model. It is complete order to cash, a complete order, it's even quote to cash system in which your customers are driving everything from the minute they engage with you, whether anonymously or registered, all the way through creation of solutions, delivery, entitlements, billing and invoicing, receiving bills and invoices the way they want to the entities they want, flexible payments and collections, allowing them to determine their payments and collections, all the way into privacy, security, and of course, managing all of that within the context of regulatory. And maybe Pete, you and I have talked about this a lot, and I'm going to hone in on, I think you're seeing a lot more of this yourself, right?
Yes, we are. I mean, definitely, the connections with BRIM's subscription order management, so to speak, we're just seeing a ton of interest in that. And then, of course, that flows through, right? And of course, with the pandemic and the the need to move and introduce these other business models, right? Subscription business models has really put a lot of pressure on the operational side. You know, do you have the billing, the invoicing to do all this? Plus,
Right.
then do you have the finance, the rev rec, the accounting to manage all of that in real time, right? So
Absolutely. And I think the great news of that, of course, is that SAP does, and we're bringing together with SAP and the folks here, Gerald, Pete, and the SAP team, really a vision of how this all fits together. Solutions from SAP that can help you with commerce, whether it's Cloud for Commerce or Ariba. Creating your solutions and doing order management through BRIM, which is solution order management, subscription billing, cloud-based solutions, SAP CPQ, configure, price, and quote, traditional sales and distribution. You have entitlements management, digital supply chain, even physical supply chain and logistics, EWM, shipping, all of those, transportation management, all of that figures in here. You have convergent charging and convergent invoicing. How do you bring together consumption-based activities and manage all of that? Finally, into how is money collected, and what is the impact on your cash flow? And there's a great podcast or a little video that you can check out, hearing a company called Vivint talk specifically about the impacts of this solution economy on their AP and AR and how that links to revenue accounting. But we're here and we're talking about, so why are we talking about this? And I see there's a question, we'll get to you in one moment. You know, Pete and Gerald, one of the reasons why we're here is because what we're seeing in the marketplace is so much of what we do from a revenue accounting perspective is impacted or driven by any one of these specific areas, whether it comes from who is your customer and recognizing the customer, right, the end customer, to solution order management, to supply chain. You know, solution order management, how do you define bundles, right? How do you define standalone selling price? And how do you do that real time? Supply chain and entitlements, what can you and can't you order? Charging and rating in a ratables environment. Maybe Gerald, before we dive in, you can talk for a minute about how has this impacted the thinking of the development team in Waldorf in terms of the way you're thinking about how RAR works in the bigger ecosystem.
Right, thank you, John. Great introduction. Right, the ecosystem is also changing and of course influenced by all those different incentives and changes. Now, SAP has created an incentive called Rise with SAP, where we help customers to build their businesses in the cloud. And we sort of accompany them with the transformation journey. So this is an expression that there is a lot of changes, a lot of disruptive technologies evolving, and which have a lot of impact also on the business processes. And so we help customers with SAP Rise to reinvent their businesses. Now, automation and integration is key with all those, and this is a must in the cloud. And therefore, I always like to look into the cloud in all those innovations. They are easy to consume and quite quickly to implement. And one of the new documents which we have created there is the solution order, right? I mentioned that because revenue accounting would probably not be the driver of those change businesses, but it would rather support those change businesses. And in the cloud, the solution order sort of is an expression that customers really need now to provide everything as a service. Yeah. So the solution order could run services, it could bring physical goods or also subscriptions. And on the revenue accounting side, we also see that there is a whole different kind of scenarios. So running from very simple with low complexity to quite high complexity. And so revenue accounting is part of that game. And as we have so many different businesses now which are changing and right now new modeled, we like to bring in revenue accounting in a kind of supportive role, and also together with other scenarios, we have created a new term which is called automated revenue management. And that means independent, whether that's a low volume business, a simple accounting with a low complexity, or a high volume business with complex accounting and high complexity, we sort of support those diverse business scenarios.
Absolutely.
That's a little the context about automated revenue management, which sort of is available in the cloud as well as also in the S/4HANA private cloud or on-premise.
Absolutely. And keeping in mind what we're showing here, let's move to that, because Gerald, you and the team in Waldorf have been working a lot on, as you think of these aspects of the new economy and the way companies are moving. We call it, and we all like to call it something XaaS or something as a service, but it can be business models that are, as you pointed out, it can be a solution. And those solutions can include any number of items. It can be a physical good, it can be software, it could be services, it can be maintenance, it could be physically delivered, or something doesn't happen until an activity, like an automation type of activity, like you provision a phone, and then you set it up so that it now works, and you validate that. So I know a lot has been going into that, and that's one of the reasons why you came up with, and I think the team came up with, I'm going to talk about the roadmap, but we'll also talk about OCM and OIP. So maybe you can spend a little time, Gerald, talking about recently, you came out with some innovations on the roadmap for automated revenue management, including certainly a cloud-based solution, EBRR, but a lot of innovation around integrations, other activities. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of those recent innovations and what you see coming in the future.
Right. Let me talk about the reason why we introduced optimized contract management, because the reason is also related to all those changing business models and also going into very high volume and complex models. And especially in the telco industry, we have seen that here there are requirements which have an impact on our architecture. So that was the reason why we had really to think how we could best support that. And the result was to rebuild the contract management, which we call now optimized contract management. And so we started that journey with OP 2019, and are continuing that also with quite exciting innovations in OP 21, which I will cover in a second. But we also were enabled by that change to also rethink about the user experience. And so we could also have on the revenue accounting side now the latest and greatest Fiori applications and also go into new business models. Now, John, you mentioned ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to really go into an ecosystem, be also a robust platform for an ecosystem, you need to be strong. And so a lot of investment is going into the revenue accounting platform to really make it stronger, more performant, having much more robust automated processes. So something which you might not really see on the user interface. But there was a lot of investment also in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you probably know our release notes where we publish all our innovations. So you might be aware about the OP 2019, OP 2020 innovations. And so I quickly just mentioned a couple of innovations in OP 21, which is maybe related to this new digital economy. For example, we have now value-based fulfillments by consumptions. Now, what does that mean? Imagine you have, for example, gift cards or consulting contracts. And so, for example, for gift cards, you buy something for 90 euro, or dollar, which has maybe a value of buying value of $100. We call it a face value with a discounted free face value. And so with one fulfillment, you consume part of that. So you consume 50. Remember, the transaction price was 90 as you bought it for 90. And so we would recognize then a revenue of 45 with this value-based fulfillment by consumption. We have also planned or assumed invoices where you could forward to revenue accounting invoices with a future posting date, independent whether you have a planned invoice or an assumed invoice. Then at a certain point of time, then the invoice is posted without actually requiring a real invoice. That is also some thing required for certain scenarios. And of course, a highlight is maybe coming from a cloud quality, so preventing or reducing batch jobs. And this is the direct posting into our universal journal. So you don't need to run program C any longer, but you directly update our universal journal. Right, that's a couple of innovations. We have also integration into a new S/4HANA solution called S/4HANA Service, where you integrate with the optimized inbound processing, and you update the revenue accounting contracts by the service contracts. You usually recognize time-based revenue, and that's also an example where there are new requirements on the services. We build out the new solutions as for HANA Service, and we have integrated this now also with revenue accounting.
On the service side of that, you mentioned services. Often services are managed through project systems. Is there there's a question on the line of integration with project systems particularly for percent of complete. I'm pretty sure that's been around for a while, correct?
Right, and even if you think about the automated revenue management, which ranges from the simple scenarios to the more complex scenarios, also with cloud and on-premise, with event-based revenue recognition and revenue accounting. So in all those scenarios, we have also percentage of completion types of fulfillments. And for example, for event-based revenue recognition, we have recognition for project-based services, project-based sales, also sell from stock. And here we have even different revenue methods underneath them. Revenue methods, results analysis methods. So you could also apply cost-based POC, for example. And also in revenue accounting, we have for the old contract management the integration into PS for the and that's a great question actually, because with the optimized contract management, actually we think that for projects the event-based revenue recognition would probably fit better in those scenarios. And so we have now also projects available with all the different flavors with respect to recognition methods, also on premise, which you could use.
Right, and they would be using, for results analysis, they would be using results analysis and the results analysis keys to help with that. Is that correct?
Right. This is for the old result analysis. Now we looked with the optimized contract management also into that. So we really took that opportunity also to re-innovate our offering, and that integration is no longer available with the optimized contract management, because we think that event-based revenue recognition would be the proper solution for that revenue recognition process. And so we have now the successor of results analysis, event-based revenue recognition, where you also find basically in a similar way kind of results analysis methods, which you could use and apply to the different scenarios.
But that doesn't mean that RAR doesn't support percent of complete, correct?
Sure, you also could apply fulfillments in a term of percentage of completion. But as the question was around projects, I was assuming that it was particular addressing maybe results analysis or event-based revenue recognition, and therefore I was picking up in that context. But of course, yes, you could also forward percentage of completion fulfillments to RAR.
Okay, thank you. Also, maybe you can talk a little bit more about, spend a few minutes, OCM and OIP. There are terms we hear often, acronyms. We at SAP and others, we love acronyms, right? What is OCM? What's unique about it? I know we have another webinar about it, but maybe you can share, what is it? What's it all about? It's really two things going on. And what are some of the improvements that have been made?
Right. Yeah, I sort of explained a little already our thinking why we introduced optimized contract management, all those new requirements, especially from the high volume business, telcos, day-based contract changes, and also requirements on the user experience. And that were the reasons why we had to basically create a new contract management. And we started that journey in OP 2019, and we got great feedback on our Fiori UI. So it's really quite nice. It's not just a rework or just bringing the old scenarios over to optimized contract management, but it's also a redesign. And some features are new, and the strong recommendation is also to go for the optimized contract management.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I was picking up on that again. So if I may now come to the optimized inbound processing, because we really like to support also the cloud thinking. So cloud is very important for our customers, and of course the cloud qualities which come with that have really some value, right? If you think about a cloud business which runs 7/24 and with close zero downtime, and so you also need to maybe avoid batch jobs or manual things and automate it to the maximum. And therefore, this transfer of RISE, which was in the old contract management available, was some area where we think we could really improve. And therefore, we have now this optimized inbound processing where you could have a direct posting into RAR. Now, it is not only the direct posting, but it comes also with a standardized way to define our APIs. So you might know that the old APIs generated the structures. The new ones, they are stable, but they can be enhanced. But this also brings in some advantages. For example, if you like to roll out a template to different organizations, then you don't need to possibly generate the API in each of the systems and care about that, but you just can roll it out.
So that would be something very interesting. Maybe you can talk for another companies that are, a number of projects that we've worked on, Bramasol, where companies have started with one business unit, for example, and roll it out. That might be an example of something where this would be an advantage, or in acquisitions. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, it really reduces efforts because you don't need to care that the latest updates are really included in your structure of your API, but you can rely on the existing structure.
Okay. Perfect. There's actually an interesting, pretty technical question here, and I'm gonna just from somebody. Does OCM support invoice correction entries against the balance sheet, a balance sheet account?
Right. I mean, this basic posting has not changed. Revenue accounting is in charge of the revenue posting, and so we trigger this invoice correction posting. With the optimized inbound processing or with the direct posting into the universal journal, this is basically triggered immediately.
Okay, great. And I know a lot of our clients love the OCM and the optimized inbound processing. You can do one or the other, correct? You can do them together or separately. Is that correct?
Right. You could run the contract management in parallel and also the inbound processing. You should know that with those contracts where you have already started with the classical inbound processing, they would stay also with the classical inbound processing, right? I mean, there is a whole infrastructure around with the process drives where we also understand changes and so on. And so you cannot jump from the one to the other. And so you would stay then with the processing where you have started.
It was very similar to what we did Oh my goodness, what is it, 4 years ago when we transitioned from 605, there was a transition process. There was always that transitioning. It's sort of the same thing, right?
Right. I mean, with the transition, this is true if you are a net new customer. So we have even a remodeling of the migration process in place. And also, this was really remodeled. Earlier we had a quite strict reconciliation to the sender system. And with the new migration concept, as you are now sort of far away from the first due date of the new IFRS, where you had to also disclose the transition amounts. But now, as we are away from this initial date, from the effective date, we have improved now the migration. Still, as the contract managements are different, we think that maybe an easier approach is to start net new contracts with the new optimized contract management, and also with the optimized inbound processing, and maybe fade out older contracts, as the migration to the new contract management might be, rather than a customer project, as something which you could easily automate, due also to the slightly different features.
That's great, thank you. Pete, I'm going to turn to you because somebody has an interesting question that you and I have discussed several times, and certainly, Gerald, you're welcome to weigh in on this. Somebody asked a question about sales type leases, and our favorite subject: how does RAR handle lessor accounting, and particularly sales type leases, where on day one, of course, we have to take that asset and move it out of our inventory and account for that as an account receivable, and then we have to bifurcate the interest income from the amortization, if you will, of the actual instrument or the device being leased. And I think that's part of the crux of the question that was asked online there. Does RAR support that? And I believe, Pete, the answer is yes, right?
Yes, it can. I mean, certainly RAR can consume the the output of the lessor side, right? I mean, obviously for the lessor, you're creating invoices, and all those can be fed into RAR, as revenue events or revenue documents, right? And so we can calculate the revenue accounting that. We do have some customers that want to do a little bit tighter integration. And so I think, John, you have looked at this with a few clients, and I know we've got some in Europe that have done it, have actually done, an extension to RAR and actually done some of those calculations right in RAR, right, for these very unique cases. So that does require extension or maybe some customization, but we do have a few customers doing that. Yes.
Yep, and we have done a few of those ourselves and shown some demos of that. So for the person asking that question, please follow up with me. We'd be happy to show you some of that, but it does do that. Also, you have often situations where you might have an OTL that turns, so an operating lease that turns into a sales type lease. And we have a transition process for that as well, right? Because you've recognized some of the revenue already, you have to transition and bifurcate. So, hey, yeah, absolutely follow up on that with us. Another question here on XASS. Does RAR have specific functionality for usage-based consumption models? I think, Gerald, you talked about that, but there are some specific integrations, for example, with SAP CC, correct? Meaning convergent charging, so that we're all right.
With the BRIM side, yeah.
Right.
On the BRIM side.
Yeah, from the BRIM side, there is this integration, and usage-based scenarios are really an area where we are currently looking into, because it's especially with the subscriptions and also what you mentioned, John, with all those new innovative digital business scenarios, we see that customers are really looking what is ratable, what is usage-based, and there are different types of usage-based scenarios, and some of the customers like to plan in advance the consumption and update that at a certain point in time. I mean, revenue accounting on top of the existing integration, it also can consume fulfillments always from outside. If you have a fulfillment scenario which is not directly integrated, but still our APIs could direct the fulfillment to the specific contract. And yes, we support that, but we also see a lot of movement, and there are some scenarios like advanced planning, maybe AI-based forecasts and so on, and updates at a certain point in time. I think we will see some of the innovations also in this area.
No, absolutely. We're seeing a lot of innovation in this space, and going back to the question that was asked before on leasing, one of the interesting topic areas that we're seeing with customers is a combination of a leasing model together with a consumable or usage-based model. So imagine that you're, let's do something easy, leasing a printer, and you're leasing the printer for a base charge, but you pay for the consumption items or test devices for medical devices, right? We're all in COVID, where we do COVID testing, right? It's an interesting combination of these elements because there's also tiered pricing involved, and RAR has the capability using the APIs, but also using BRF Plus and the inherent tools in RAR to allow you flexibility in those scenarios. Correct, Gerald?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're absolutely right with those lease scenarios, that they sort of are also coming in combination with revenue recognition items. Now there is this one point where an item qualifies either for a lease or for a revenue recognition item. Yeah, if it's interchangeable, if it doesn't have a specific thing, if it can be exchanged by the lessor, then I guess it falls under the revenue recognition standard. But of course, that's something you need to clarify with the accountant. And so so far we have usually the majority of those scenarios within the revenue recognition standard. Yeah, so we could handle it with a solution order with those different aspects. But of course, especially in the healthcare industry, we have also these scenarios where you did a great job and created the enhancements for those business requirements.
Yeah, similarly, I think the high-tech industry, where we see more and more companies providing something as a service. Look at SAP, right, with the RISE solution, and we provide business transformation as a service, but other companies are out there providing platforms as a service, or platform together with infrastructure, together with software as a service. And it's a combination of many different types of POBs that get combined together. They can be hardware, activation based, all of that. And I think, the beauty of RAR as a tool, and this is going to go to a question somebody has online about, do I have to use BRIM per se? Well, BRIM is certainly we think the best solution for what you do. It is certainly a powerful, robust solution, but RAR is capable of handling input from many different solutions, correct, Pete and Gerald?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, basically you have the adapter reuse layer, like the API. Gerald might be able to comment more, but yes, it was built, from the ground up to have that ability to bring in, many streams of data from disparate systems.
Right, and we have pre-built integration scenarios for SD, for CRM, but also for BRIM, and also for third parties. So we have now quite a long history now with the telco customers, and they are usually having external systems which they connect to RAR.
Yeah, we do find that, and then the media companies tend to have a lot of those external systems as well, right? The big media companies that offer content as a service, right?
Right. And the good thing is really you could mix also those worlds. Yeah. So if you have in-house order management, but external invoice management, then you could also forward the invoices to RAR. So it understands the corresponding sender contracts and could direct those postings also to the right contract.
Yeah, there's a question here, and we do have another webinar that you can check out. There's lots more content, both from SAP as well as Bramasol on this subject, which is migration. We know as 2025 gets closer and closer, SAP is encouraging people and looking to move. I mean, RISE is a great way for companies to move to S/4HANA. Gerald, I believe there are standard tools SAP has to help customers move from the on-premise 1.3 over to S/4HANA and optimized contract management, correct?
Yes, exactly. I don't have the note at hand, but so depending on the state, whether you would like to integrate to the Universal Journal, there are a lot of tools which help you. I guess there's also some service offering out there.
Yep.
Well, one thing which is particular maybe to the on-premise world, so if you have used RAR as an add-on, then I guess you would also move that to the classic contract management in S4 first, yeah, and probably live with those contracts, trade them out, and start maybe new contracts with the optimized contract management. So that's something we have seen in that area.
Okay. Yeah, there's a very technical question on here, and I think will has to do with predictive accounting and incoming orders in predictive accounting versus the way it's designed for having transaction price for COPA. Maybe the person who's asking that question, why don't you follow up directly and we'll get this question over to the team. Seems a little more specific, so we'll get a few more details to you. With that in mind, we talked about integration. To wrap up, as you pointed out and we've all talked about, we see more and more of these companies moving towards S/4HANA and moving to the subscription economy and taking sort of a finance first or a customer first approach. Gerald, what's on and Pete, what's on the roadmap, the radar screen for ongoing integration with BRIM and central finance?
Yeah, so for BRIM, I mean, we have already a robust offering. We have seen that maybe costs could be a topic for the BRIM integration. But BRIM is also used in different scenarios. So underneath there's the provider contract, FICI, you had it on the slides. And so there is already a robust basis to also support new business models. Now, on the central finance part, the central finance area is really some area which is staying, is continuously winning additional customers. And therefore, our colleagues from the AIS, the installed base, they come up now with the note where you can use the central finance conversion. And so you could convert fields from the incoming RAR and use the mapping by the standard CFIN tools. So and therefore you could then map that to the entities which central finance understand. Yeah, so sometimes you name organizational units differently for the central thing. And this is now supported. I even have the node number with me. It's 3018663, and it was a quite recent development, focusing first now on the classic inbound processing, but the optimized inbound processing is in preparation. And then you could run also a central revenue accounting in the central finance area.
Great. Yep, and a lot of our customers are using central finance as a great way to step into S/4HANA, and certainly using a powerful tool like RAR in that process is a great way to centralize and focus on that. So thank you.
Exactly.
Anything else, Gerald, did you want to mention before we wrap up?
To pick up on the latest point, that it's really a great first move to the S/4HANA world, as you could integrate also older releases into the central finance system, which runs then on S/4HANA.
Exactly. No, that's great. And of course, you know, I think emphasize cloud, cloud, cloud here, right? All of this is available in the cloud, and is available either through, you know, there are public cloud versions. We have event-based revenue recognition, and of course contract-based revenue recognition to support public cloud, and RAR is available in the private edition, correct?
Yes, but we are also enhancing the views. Yeah, so the business scenarios are really spanning from low volume, simple to high volume, and that's true for the cloud as well for on-premise. And so both solution, event-based revenue recognition and revenue accounting are available in on-premise, but also on cloud. And revenue accounting, for example, RAR for third parties, but also for BRIM in the cloud, and event-based revenue recognition. I named the processes previously, the project-based sales, etc. That's in the cloud, underneath cloud scenarios, but you also have it now on premise, like we see also in event-based revenue recognition, especially in the projects area. That was this question previously, and here we think that event-based revenue recognition can do a great job also with the different recognition methods for projects in on-premise.
That was great. So we're getting to the end here, so why don't I will jump up to the wrap up. Gerald, again, thank you so much, and Pete, thank you so much for your participation, your leadership here, and sharing insights with our customers. Folks asked some great questions. I think the keys I want folks to walk away with is companies are moving inextricably to this new business model. We see more and more of it. Pete and I talk, and Gerald, we all talk regularly about more and more companies moving to leasing models, usage-based models. Don't forget revenue sharing models. RAR supports revenue sharing model. What's a revenue sharing model? More and more we see companies offering services through apps or third parties, right? You think of the fact that you can buy all kinds of different shows or different tools more and more through companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, many others who have different revenue sharing models, and RAR, and particularly RAR in combination with BRIM, do a phenomenal job of supporting those. And we talked about this growth in something as a service and outcome-based models. We see that more and more. Gerald, you talked about OCM and OIP, optimized contract management and optimized inbound processing. Our customers are finding this to be extremely helpful, particularly the flexibility as they move. We talk, Pete, you and I talk about volume, velocity, density, and complexity, right?
Yeah.
And the balance among these, the interface to the Universal Journal for true real-time, and then integration with BRIM and CFIN. Pete, do you want to leave our viewers with, or our listeners with, anything in particular before we call it a day?
No, I was just going to say that, Gerald and the development team has spent a lot of time thinking about the future, right? And so that's why you now see things like optimized contract management, right? And the optimized inbound processing, outbound processing. So anyway, they, thankfully, and we thank them for all that work, because that's what allow us to keep up with all these new business models.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's
it does.
That's great work.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Gerald. Well, thank you to everybody here listening. I appreciate all of your attendance. Again, this is being recorded. For those of you who had some questions but didn't get a chance to ask them, please do reach out directly to me. I'm happy to answer your questions, and happy to help you out. And I want to wish everybody a great day. Again, thanks to Pete and Gerald for your time. I know it's very late there, Gerald, so I'll let you go. And I thank you all for your time. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Yes, thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.